Okay, guys, we can get straight into this. 2023 quarterfinals workouts. Here we go. Let's start with some very general reminders. Thoroughly read through all the workout notes, floor plans, movement standards, equipment requirements, and video submission requirements. I would suggest that the first thing you do before even thinking about the workouts and things like strategy is go through every single workout. Read the minor details. Don't just skim through it because this stuff's super, super important. Once you've been through that, then reread through the workouts you're going to do on the day. I'll recommend in terms of how to attack your workouts over the 3 days, but just really bring focus to the workouts you're about to do. Make sure you speak to your coach, affiliate, or gym and plan your workout timings ahead of time. This is going to be super important. You don't want to be wasting time over the next 2 to 3 days hanging around doing nothing. You want to get in, you want to be super efficient. Obviously, if you want to cheer on your friends and be a part of the community, that's awesome as well. But know exactly what you're going to be doing ahead of time. That's going to allow you to do the next point, which is prepare your food for the day. Pre, intra, post workout nutrition. It should all be packed and arranged before you go into the gym. Of course, if you have your own processes that you do every day, you order food from somewhere or it gets delivered at a certain time, that's awesome. But those are just those little things that can remove stress in competition time and allow you to focus more on just doing the workouts and recovering. Obviously, have all your necessary equipment with you: rope, spare rope, wrist wraps, knee sleeves, all that kind of stuff. Make sure your camera is charged and has adequate memory. Download the WOD-proof or something similar like a timer app, so you don't have to worry about the clock being in video. For the quarterfinals, guys, everyone is going to have to submit and upload their videos, regardless of whether or not you have a judge. So make sure you nail those submission standards because you're going to have lots of people looking at your videos. And if it is a insufficient video or you're not meeting the video recording standards, I'm sure someone is probably going to call you up and you're going to have points deducted, or worst case scenario, you actually have to do the workout again. Yes. Let's move on. Okay, submission deadlines. You're going to have to work out if you're in Asia or not in the US, I should say. Make sure you calculate and work out what times these are in your country. But these are the submission deadlines for all the workouts, very much the same as last year. I know there are rumors that this might change. This does not mean that the workouts have to be done on these days. We'll talk about that in our next slide. But guys, if you're going to put yourself through the workouts, please make sure you are submitting your workout scores and videos ahead of time and not missing submission deadlines. Okay, order of workout execution. Provided you with 4 options here. Options 1 and 2 are for those who want to complete the 5 workouts over 2 days. Options 3 and 4 are for those who want to complete the 5 workouts over 3 days. So let's quickly talk about this. Option number 1 is going to be on the Friday. You do test number 1 and test number 2. You submit your scores at the end of the day. And on Saturday, you do in this order: test number 3, followed by test number 5, followed by test number 4. What we're doing here in terms of the order of movements or the order of workouts is prioritizing the heaviest, most demanding workouts first. So we know that the test 1 is a heavy-ish front squat workout, whereas test 2 for most people is going to be a little bit lighter. You'll then see on the Saturday, starting with test 3, the heavy clean and jerk workout, and then we go into test 5 next, which is going to be the final workout: rope climbs, pull-ups, deadlifts, a heavier workout again, and then we'll finish with a lighter workout. I imagine a lot of people might be pulling out quite sore from the GHC V-up workout, so we want to put that last so we don't have any interference or fatigue for the midline. Doing heavy tests with a fatigue midline is a lot more challenging. Option 2 is probably the one I'm going to recommend for most people doing their workouts over 2 days. Actually beginning on the Friday with test 3, the heavy clean and jerk burpee box jump over workout. Starting with that first, it's probably the heaviest, most demanding workout of all the workouts. That is, of course, if you can actually lift that barbell. So we start with test 3, then we go into test 1 after that. And to be honest, the rest time between test 3 and test 1 doesn't have to be that long. You actually are potentially someone who can have a short rest, turn around and go kind of straight into that test 1 workout because the movement patterns are fairly similar. Or of course, if you have time on your hands, have a full recovery and rest and then get after test 1. And then we do test 2. And then on the Saturday, the next day, you do test 5 first, and then you finish with test 4, the GHC workout. So options 3 and 4 are those for those who are going to be doing the workout spread over 3 days. Obviously, this is a bit more optimal in terms of recovery time, but it may also mean that you're giving your body time to actually feel the fatigue or things like delayed onset muscle soreness from the workout. So not necessarily going to be a better option if you're someone who's been training, doing multiple workouts over 3 days, multiple hard workouts, I should say, then maybe you're acclimatized to volume and intensity to be able to do this. So you got two options there. Friday for option 3, start with test 1 followed by test 2, Saturday test 3, 4, Sunday test 5. You're basically doing the workouts as they prescribe in the order. And then option 4 would be test 1, test 2, stacking 3 workouts on a Saturday and giving yourself the potential for a redo of test number 5 on the Sunday. Moving on, what we're going to go through now, guys, is we're going to go through each of the tests, starting with test 1, finishing with test 5, some general thoughts on pacing and strategy, and then I'm actually going to recommend a warm-up that you can follow to help you execute the workout to the best of your ability. So let's start with test 1. This is a front squat handstand walk workout. Firstly, remember there is a tie break. Not all the workouts have tie breaks. That's going to be your time taken to complete your last set of front squats. This is going to be especially applicable if you're likely to get bottlenecked on the handstand walks, muscle ups, which I imagine not many people get bottlenecked for the muscle ups, given that you probably had to do quite a few to get here in the first place in the open, or the wall facing handstand push-ups. What I mean by that, if you know you're going to get bottlenecked, the wall facing handstand push-ups, then it may be within your interest to push that last set, especially if your front squats, a little bit more, even if it means a little bit more fatigue, to give you a better tie break time. Set up 3 bars, or of course have someone change your weights for you. Front squats, in terms of strategy here for the elite, I'm going to be imagining pretty much everyone's going to be going unbroken with a squat clean for your first rep. Obviously, make sure you warm up your squat clean if that's what you plan to do. For the intermediate, if that first bar is heavy for you and it's kind of touch and go as to whether or not you can do 9 reps unbroken, or you're worried that that's going to put you into a great deal of fatigue and maybe affect the rest of your workout, I'd say it might still be worth doing this first set unbroken and digging a little bit deeper, as your legs and your breathing will probably recover on the 9 handstand walks. It's quite a bit of time. For weight 2 and weight 3, of course, quick breaks might be a good option. Obviously, the thing you have to think about here is bar starts on the floor, which means you have to clean it up every single time. So if you're someone who has a very proficient clean, maybe dropping the bar and having a quick break is not so big a deal. If the clean is actually a hard movement for you, then maybe holding on and going for slightly bigger sets might be a better option. Of course, the bigger opportunities for bottlenecks here, guys, are going to be in the gymnastics movements. So don't get too focused on those front squats. It's really about managing fatigue so you can execute the gymnastics movements as fast as possible. Handstand walks, big kicker here is that you must complete the 25-foot unbroken. So if you come down at any point before the end, you must restart the entire segment. So it's a very costly movement to be doing a no rep on or coming down before the line. So really, I'm just going to say no reps on the handstand walks. Especially silly no reps we see is people doing the 25-foot and then not crossing over the line according to the standards and having to restart the whole thing. That's really just costly because you've done all the work already, not getting credited with a rep. My advice would be walk an extra foot over the line every single time. It's only 9 repetitions. Even if that means a little bit of time added to your workout, it's completely worth it versus no repping. Muscle ups, something I'd be thinking about here if you're a proficient muscle upper, is really just about managing fatigue on the handstand push-ups. A lot of people, or the elite and better athletes, are going to be able to get through 15 muscle ups no problem. But if we're creating additional fatigue through the chest and the triceps, which is what we know where we often get fatigued in a muscle up in the dipping portion, that could wreak havoc on your wall-facing handstand push-ups. And there's a massive opportunity for a bottleneck on the wall-facing handstand push-ups. A lot of athletes may be pushing a little bit close to failure there, and the time taken to restart a rep on a handstand push-up is really long, because you're going to have to wall walk all the way up and you have to wall walk all the way back down again. So it should be within our interest to kind of preserve our energy a little bit. When I say energy, I'm really talking about like the pressing muscles required to do a wall-facing handstand push-up, preserving ourselves so that we can execute those 21 reps as fast as possible with minimal or as little breaks as possible, just because, again, the time taken to complete a rep. In your warm-ups, guys, for the handstand push-ups, play with the movement standard. Find the most efficient hand and head position for you. So hand on the line, you might be in the images, they're actually placing kind of like fingers front of the hand on the line. I'd recommend getting the palms of the hands as far away from the wall as possible. But again, this is just case dependent. Must will walk up and down. So that's going to add some fatigue to it as well. So save your triceps and shoulders as much as you can when peeling yourself off the floor. Don't take any reps to failure. Going to failure on these and getting a no rep because you can't do anymore, unless of course it's close to the very end of your 21 handstand push-ups, or time caps fast approaching, is going to be really, really costly, because the recharge time in a wall-facing handstand push-up is really, really long. Just make sure you read the standard that your feet do not need to stay in contact with the wall, so you can actually slide up the wall as you press on something like your thighs, but you must start and finish with your feet in contact with the wall. In terms of a warm-up here, we're always going to break it down in the following way: start range of motion, then activation, specific movement prep, and then putting it all together. Range of motion, things we're going to need here: ankles, hips, and thoracic extension. Make sure your squat position is feeling good. Wrist and overhead position for the handstand walks and wall-facing handstand push-ups. So I'm sure you guys have your own drills. We won't go into the details there. Once you've opened up the range of motion that you need, really recommend prepping the things like glutes, hamstrings, quads for the squatting. So things like air squats, lunges, hip thrusts, RDLs. Make sure we're prepping our pecs. You're going to need to be pressing off the floor every single time. And of course, you've got the dipping portion of the muscle ups, delts, and the overhead position. Specific movement prep, I'd really recommend getting your aerobic system warm. So anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes or more on something like an assault bike, increasing the pace every minute, finishing at 8 out of 10 effort. We want to be breathing here, guys, because you're going to be breathing in this workout. Okay, then we're going to start by dialing in our front squats. I would recommend doing something like 1 clean and 2 to 5 front squats, building to the heaviest load in the workout. If that load is no problem for you, then I'd recommend kind of doing weight jumps, kind of like the weights are prescribed, and just getting a few squats in at every single bar. Of course, guys, if the squat clean is not a comfortable movement for you, opting for a power clean, setting your feet, and then going through reps could be a good option as well. Focus on positions of breathing. So where are you going to breathe in each rep? For most of us, that's going to be the top of each rep. Obviously, depending on how heavy the load is. If it's a lighter load for you, you might be able to breathe throughout the repetition. Think about things like smooth cadence and obviously meeting the movement standards, especially on those heavy bars, guys, heavier bars. Getting across the rep is just a lot of time and, more importantly, energy wasted. Obviously, then dial in your wall-facing handstand push-ups, your muscle-ups, and your handstand walks. Focus on technique and meeting the standards. Enough reps just to feel confident in each movement. And then we just put it all together, kind of something like this, where you're going to go through a broken down iteration of the workout. You're getting a feel for moving between the different bars and the different movements. Rest anywhere between 2 to 4 minutes. Do 1 to 2 rounds on that. If these are already very tough movements for you, I'd recommend just 1 round. Save yourself for the actual workout. As soon as you finish your warm-up, pretty much go straight into your measurements, camera introduction. That's going to take a bit of time anyway. And then we want to hit the workout. Don't rest 3 to 4 minutes after a warm up and then start your camera intros, because that may be something like a 10-minute break before you're actually doing the workout. That's going to be something that's going to be consistent through all these tests. Okay, test 1 done. Let's move into test 2. This is the dumbbell snatch, overhead walking lunge, and the crossovers. Okay, so pacing strategy, some thoughts on dumbbell snatch. Firstly, a clean and jack is not permitted, but you can do any variation of a snatch. So it's doing something like a power snatch and dipping under in the catch feels more comfortable for you, then I'd highly recommend warming that up and using that throughout. Check the standards on how to hold the dumbbell. So we cannot be like kind of clocking it back in our hand. We've got to have our hand on the handle. Can't be holding the head. Dumbbell overhead walking lunge. There's no stipulation as to how long each lunge needs to be. So kind of find a lunge step distance that's comfortable for you. Of course, don't have to come up with both feet together and stop, but both legs must be fully extended. No reps in this movement as well. Again, the time taken to complete a lunge for some of us, because of the heavier load, is going to be quite slow and grindy. So just make sure we're not wasting energy by essentially going through rep and not getting credited with it. Crossovers. For most people, I'm sure this is not a movement they have done much of. I know our elite crew have been doing a lot of crossover type skipping. But a general piece of advice would be use a thicker, heavier, or a beaded rope just to give you a little bit more feel. It's not necessarily going to be a very fast movement. And I find that a speed or wire rope, you just don't really know where that rope is. So if you have that accessible in your gym, try to use it and warm up with it. You may have to adjust with things like rope length. Some people may feel they actually need that rope to be a little bit longer or even shorter. It really depends. Just find the rope length that's best for you. Obviously, spend time practicing this in your warm-up. It's not really a fatiguing movement that's going to kill you for the workout. So you can spend a bit more time dialing this in. And when you feel like it's dialed in, you're comfortable with the movement, then we start the workout. This is a bit of a iffy one that judges are going to need to know. But remember, your counting begins the first time the hands cross and the rope passes successfully. But then once you've crossed, it's then every rep, including a regular single under, that counts. This is definitely going to be a bit of bit of a gray spot, I think. But essentially what that means is if you are doing a single under to start, that does not count. Then as soon as you start your crossover, that counts as rep 1. And then you go into a next single under, that counts as rep 2. But if you trip on that next single under, then you must start again. You start with a single under, you don't get the rep. The rep is only credited once it crosses over, and then every subsequent linked rep is how I understand it. On the scorecard, there is a little link which says, click here to watch the movement standard. That shows you how to count it, but just make sure you're dialed in and make sure your judge understands this. I'm sure this is a workout where they're going to be really looking for that and making sure the counting is done correctly. Pacing strategy, warm-ups. Range of motion, overhead, hinge, lunge, ankles, pretty straightforward. Activation, things like calf raises, walking lunge, split squats, overhead carries, single dumbbell deadlifts. Of course, things like single unders and just warming up your bounding mechanics is going to be important. Specific movement prep, spend time dialing in your crossovers. I talked about already. If that's something that's comfortable for you, then you don't need to spend as much time. If this is you doing the movement for the first time, then spend a bit more time. Dumbbell snatch builds the RX load, completing 3 to 5 touch and go reps per arm. Remember, it's not alternating. And the same thing for the overhead walking lunge, building a few repetitions. Think about potentially doing your dumbbell snatches, 7 of them, placing the dumbbell down, giving yourself a little break, doing your last dumbbell snatch, then going straight into your overhead lunges. Don't do 8 snatches, rest, and then have to do another additional snatch and then get into your reps. Put it all together, just do a broken down iteration of the workout. Again, anywhere between 1 to 2 rounds. As soon as you finish your warm up, get straight into your measurements and camera introduction. Let's get into test 3, guys. Pacing strategy. We are now talking about what do we got? Pace. We got the clean and jerk, burpee, box jump over workout. So unless that bar is light for you, it's going to be a bit of a grind. I'm sure for most people, pacing actually is going to be quite important here. I know a lot of people, strong athletes may look at this and see it as a sprint, but I think for a lot of people, it's still a pretty heavy barbell. The thing to think about is there is a potential for this workout to bottleneck us in the round of 4 to 5 clean and jerk. So if you go too fast in the round of 1 to 3, and when you're feeling good, what might start to happen is that your recharge time in the round of 4 and 5 might start to get a lot longer, or you start to fail repetitions, which is something we really don't want to do, especially if you can do that way. You've got to hit every single repetition in this workout. So it may be intelligent just to slow down, especially on those burpee box jump overs, something like a step back and a step up on burpee, kind of like think about that as being active rest. So you're coming back to the bar every time and hitting your repetitions. I would just say, unless it's your very last rep, you're pushing for that time, or this weight is already just over your 1 rep max or at your 1 rep max, I would really recommend just no 50-50s here. So if there's a little bit of doubt, don't go into the lift until you know and you feel confident you're going to hit it. Wear a belt. I'd recommend if that's something you practice with, and I would just keep it on throughout the whole workout. You can just loosen it up on the burpee box jump overs, but don't be taking it on and off throughout the workout. In terms of range of motion, we need the overhead position, of course, in the front rack, and we need the squat. I'm going to be thinking more about just prepping the positions for the clean and jerk, not worrying too much about the burpee box jump over. Focus on the clean and jerk movement. So obviously things like RDLs, front squats, clean deadlifts, shrugs, high pulls, muscle cleans, your Bergner warm-ups, all that kind of stuff, making sure the positions are prepped. Specific movement prep, I'm now actually going to build to the load, the clean and jerk, and making sure I'm feeling snappy and efficient with my movement, my technique. Now, if this is above your listed 1 rep max, and you want to attempt to try to hit some repetitions or even just a repetition in this workout, what I'd recommend is building to about 85 to 90% of the prescribed load in your warm-up, and then literally just start the workout and just give it your best shot. Don't be trying to hit the weight in your warm-up. Save that for the actual workout. Essentially you can have as many attempts in the workout as you want. Put it all together, again, just abbreviated version of the workout. This would apply to people who can actually lift that load. Otherwise, like I said, just build to 85, 95% of it, and then literally just start the clock and try and hit a repetition or more. Let's talk about test 4, row GHD sit-up and the V-up, another new movement. Remember your row, you may receive assistance in setting the rower. There's a new little thing here. I don't know if this is new. I can't remember seeing it any other times, but if you're time capped on the rower, once the monitor has come to rest, every 10 meters completed will count. So if you are finishing that rower, like keep on rowing hard right until the end of the time cap. If you can finish with like a hard pull, that's just going to tick over and potentially give you another rep. So do it, it's worth it. The V up, maybe a bit of an iffy standard. I'm sure judges are going to get this one wrong. But there's a few things you need to be thinking about. Torso and legs have to leave the floor at the same time. At the top, your entire torso has to be off the ground. So you can't think about like bent knee V-ups and just like crunching forward and touching toes. That doesn't work. Both torso and feet must be off the ground. Feet are together. That's another important one. I'm sure a lot of people are going to take those legs apart, and toes are above the athlete's head when looking at a side profile. So again, like this is one you're just going to have to practice and brief your judge on. Again, you're going to have to upload videos here. I'm sure people are going to be looking out for repetitions here. GHD setup, of course, you've got a height recommendation, a height requirement in terms of the top of the pad to the floor. Get this stuff sorted before your workout. Don't do your whole warm up, get onto a floor, and then start playing around with the GHD height. It just takes a lot of time and can just pull you out of focus the actual workout. For your warm up, guys, the main thing here is, range of motion, touching your toes, thoracic extension. There's just two main things. It's very much a hinging sit-up workout. Thoracic extension is going to be the GHD as you arch backwards. Activation, I just start with a bit of a row, 1,000 to 1,500 meters at a smooth aerobic pace. Things like hollow holds, ab mat sit-ups, just to prime the trunk. And then your specific movement prep is just like practicing the V up and finding a flow and trying to find rhythm. Really, I think something to think about in a V up, for anyone who's done them, is making sure the feet and torso leave the floor at the same time. Number one, that's a standard, but you'll find that if one leaves before the other, it can kind of just create a bit of a rock in the movement. It makes it very hard for you to meet your toes at the top of the rep. Things like half GHD sit-ups and progress into full GHD sit-ups. Then, of course, you put it all together, something like a 500-meter row at the intended game pace, GHD sit-ups, more rowing, and some V-ups, resting 1 to 2 minutes, 1 to 2 rounds if needed, and then start measurements and get into your camera introduction. Let's get into our final workout here, guys. Apologies, I appear to have missed out the important part, which was talking about what we need to consider for the workout. I'm just pulling it up in my notes here. Okay, so final workout, we have the pull-up rope climb workout, deadlift. So things to think about to start. Oh, no, I do have it here. Set up multiple bars or have someone help you change them. Of course, honestly, there's nothing out of the ordinary in terms of movement standards or nothing different to what we experienced in the past. In terms of your range of motion, obviously prepping all your hinging muscles for your deadlifts or the hinging patterns, prepping your overhead position for your gymnastics, your chest to bars and your bar muscle ups, thoracic extension, because we need to be moving through that hollow in the arch. One other thing I think about is just warming up your hip flex as well. We know for the rope climbs, we're going to need to be able to bring those knees up towards the chest. So making sure that's primed. Activation, get your aerobic system warm, guys. So something like at least 5 minutes on an assault bike, increasing your pace every single minute. And then we're going to go through things like RDLs, deadlifts, strict pull-ups, strict dips, strict push-ups, rope climbs, just priming the upper body and the lower body for the movements. Specific movement prep, I would recommend starting by building to the heaviest load in the deadlift. So the final bar, if that's where you're going to get to. Practice a mixture of singles and touch and go repetitions at each load. Be comfortable with both. And then I would next dial in things like chest to bars, bar muscle ups, and rope climbs. On the rope climbs, really practice efficient descents here, and then put it all together, a broken down variation of the workout, again, where you're practicing moving through kind of 30 to 50% of the workout, resting 1 to 2 minutes, completing 1 to 2 rounds, and then you start your measurements and your camera introduction. Cool, guys. So that is a wrap on the workouts. Good luck to everyone taking part. Of course, those who are part of the process programming, if you would like assistance, help, you can always reach out to your coach or the coaching team here. We are here to help you throughout this weekend. And I hope you found this helpful. Good luck, everyone.